here's a question that you've probably never really thought about. Why does your bank give you money for spending money? Cash back, points, miles, whatever it is, many banks have these rewards programs for people who spend money with their card. Essentially, they give you money for spending money. Why is that? Banks aren't in the business of just giving away money. It's all about profit for them. So if they're paying you to spend, that means your spending is worth more to them than what they're giving you back. The question is, how and why? By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how banks profit from every dollar you spend on your credit card and your debit card, and how they've quietly built your whole environment around keeping you spending. We'll walk through every layer of how banks profit from your spending. We'll start with the obvious one, the one everybody already knows about. Then we'll go a layer deeper, to the one most people have never heard of. And then we'll go all the way down to the psychological layers, the things encouraging you to spend every single day without you noticing. Now, one quick thing before we start. When I say banks, I mean banks, credit unions, online banks, credit card companies, basically any entity that is willing to issue you a card. To keep it simple, I'll just be calling them all banks. All right, let's get into it. Starting with layer one. The obvious way banks benefit from your spending is when you borrow from them to spend. A home loan, a car loan, a credit card, student loans, personal loans, any way you borrow money. Because when you borrow money from the bank, you have to pay it back. You have to pay back what you borrowed plus a little extra in the form of interest. Interest is the cost of borrowing money, and it's the reason banks are even willing to lend you money in the first place. So banks benefit from you spending, especially when you spend money on things you can't currently afford, because then you have to borrow from them to pay for it, and then pay them interest. Now, like I said, this is a layer everybody knows. You've heard it your whole life. Banks make money on debt. Nothing surprising there. However, it isn't the only way banks make money off of you. Banks figured out how to get paid even when you're spending your own money, even when you never borrow a cent. So here is layer two. Every time you make a purchase with a card, debit, or credit, the bank still makes money. You see, there's a fee, usually somewhere between 1% to 3% of the purchase price, that gets split up between the bank that issued you the card, the payment processor, the card network, and the bank the business uses. Each of them takes a small sliver of every single swipe you make. And yes, this applies with your phone and online purchases as well. It's called an interchange fee. You never see it. It doesn't show up on your receipt because it's paid by the business, not by you, but it still affects you. And here's why. Think about what this fee means. If the bank earns a little bit of money every single time you use their card, then banks are very incentivized to get you spending with their cards as much as possible. Everywhere, for everything. When you realize this, a lot of things start to make sense. Things like why your bank keeps mailing you new card offers, and why your card gives you rewards. Those points aren't a gift. They're an incentive to spend. The bank is handing you back a small piece of that interchange fee so you'll spend more. Because the more you spend, the more they earn. So that's the hidden second layer that most people aren't aware of. But honestly, fees and interest are just the why. They're why banks want you to spend. But where this gets really interesting is how they actually get you to spend. How exactly banks have engineered the world around you to keep you spending. Well, let's look into that in layer three. The first way they've done this is pretty simple. Banks have made it extremely easy to spend. It is so much easier to carry a card in your wallet than to carry cash. It's even easier to not bring your wallet at all and just bring your phone. It's easier to swipe a card than to count out dollars and cents at the register, and it's easier to buy something online with a card than it ever would be with cash. And here's why all of that matters. If it's easy to spend money, we are much more likely to do so. I mean, think of this. Imagine if buying something online required you to write out a check, mail it to the business, wait for the check to clear, and only then would they ship you the thing you bought. Do you think there would be as many online purchases? Of course not. There'd be a small fraction of them. But in reality, you don't even have to get out of bed to buy something anymore, and it shows up at your front door in a few hours. That can only happen because banks have made it incredibly easy to process payments. Every step of friction between you and a purchase has been carefully and systematically removed, and it continues to get easier and easier. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but that's just convenience. That's just progress. And sure, it is convenient and it is very useful, but understand what was removed along with all the friction. Those little inconveniences were also your protection. Every extra step was a moment where you could change your mind, or even just decide it's not worth the effort. And those moments to reconsider are gone. You don't have time to second guess yourself anymore. And that now brings us to the deepest layer, because it turns out friction wasn't the only protection you lost. There's something that happens in our brain when we spend money. It's called the pain of payment. There's a real pain you feel every time you spend money. You've probably felt it. It might be a general feeling of discomfort, an unwillingness to spend any more money for the next few days, a low level of stress or a spike of anxiety. For some people, it can even get physical, like an upset stomach or just feeling a bit sick. Whatever form it takes, there's a pain that comes with spending because you're giving something up. The money itself, but also everything else you could have done with that money. You're losing something, and your brain knows it. Now, that pain is actually useful. It is a natural brake on your spending. So banks have gone to great lengths to remove it. Here's what I mean. Studies have found that people who pay for everything in cash tend to spend less than people who use a card. Same amount of money, but it's more painful to hand over cash that you never are getting back than to hand over a card that comes right back to your wallet. The feeling of loss is smaller because there's no visible loss of money in the moment. It's a tiny difference with a big impact. And it goes further. Studies have also found that it's even less painful to pay with your phone than with a card. People who pay with their phones tend to spend even more because a card, at least, is still associated with money. When you pull out a card, you think of money. But your phone is 1,000 things. So when you pay with it, the connection to money gets even weaker, and the pain drops even further. Cash to card to phone, each step less pain, and each step more spending. But the biggest move banks have made is separating the payment from the purchase entirely. And the best way to understand this is to think of a cruise. Cruises are paid for upfront. The ticket, the food, the activities, almost all of it paid months before you even board the ship. So once you're on the cruise, you can do whatever you want without ever thinking about money. Now, imagine the opposite. Imagine the only thing you paid for up front was your ticket and a bed, and every meal, every activity cost extra. Same total money in the end, but the whole trip you're pulling out your card over and over, feeling that pain of payment all day long, watching your money drain. Which cruise would you enjoy more? Obviously the first one. And that's exactly why cruises work that way. They separated the pain of payment from the enjoyment of the purchase. You feel the pain once, months earlier, and by the time you're on board, you've forgotten all about it. Now, here's how banks have done the same thing, but in reverse. Credit cards. With a credit card, instead of paying up front, you pay afterward. You get the thing you want now, you enjoy it now, and no money leaves your account, so you feel no pain. The pain doesn't show up until weeks later when the credit card bill comes due. And by then, your brain doesn't really connect the pain back to the purchase you made. The purchase and the payment have been pulled apart. That little separation makes people far more willing to spend than if they had to hand over cash in the moment. And it is exactly what the banks are counting on. Now, after all of that, you might expect me to tell you that banks are evil and we should be storming the castle. But honestly, I believe the exact opposite. Banks play an important role in the economy and in our society, and they provide real benefits. Yes, banks earn money off you being in debt. But because of that, they can help you get into a house today or get a car you need today, even if it costs you more in the long run, because you get it now and you don't have to wait 20 years to be able to afford it on your own. That matters. So no, banks aren't evil. They're just doing what's in their best interest. And the problem is that the environment they've built around you is biased toward you spending. They have made it easy and tempting on purpose because they benefit every single time you do. But the answer isn't to go on a witch hunt after the banks. Instead, the answer is to change you. They're doing what's in their best interest, so you need to start doing what's in yours. So what does that actually look like? It looks like putting the friction and the pain back on purpose. Things like removing saved card info, so buying online takes effort again. Disable one-tap pay. And for whatever category you consistently overspend in, try using cash. And let the pain of payment work for you instead of against you. Stop just trying to rely on willpower and just telling yourself you'll just spend less. Take the environment that was built in their favor and rebuild the parts you control in yours. Get your brain working in your favor, not against you. Now, before you go, banks are only one of the groups shaping your spending. There are others, and some of their influences are even more subtle. So I built a free tool called the Environment Audit that walks you through all of them and shows you which ones are actually working on you in your own life. It's completely free, and the link is in the description. So thanks for sticking with me here till the end, and I look forward to seeing you next time.